Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching TopTenzNet. In the video today, we're doing a follow-up on a previous video. We've got, are these 10 things actually possible? We already did one of these. You can find a link to it in the description below. We might be living in the age of information, and the internet has almost everything at our fingertips, but sometimes finding the answers to our most burning questions can be harder than a simple Google search. We have trawled through the internet and found the answers to some of the most common questions where people wonder, is it possible? Can you actually cry blood? Is it possible to catch up on sleep? Well, join us today as we answer these questions and more. Number 10. Is it possible to be addicted to weed? This is a tricky question, as there have not been many studies yet on marijuana and its effects in terms of addiction, partially because the illegality has made it difficult for researchers to do much of any testing whatsoever. However, what we do know is that 30% of people who try marijuana end up with a marijuana use disorder. This disorder is characterized by symptoms where the individual can have a lack of desire to eat, loss of sleep, irritability, and other symptoms, which reach their worst after being off the drug for a week and usually start to fall off after 2 weeks. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that these people are addicted. To meet the requirements for addiction, you have to be more than just dependent on the drug. Those who are addicted to drugs are dependent on them, but not all people who are dependent on drugs are addicted. A much smaller portion of people with marijuana use disorder are addicted, but it can occur. While it is not common, addiction to marijuana occurs when someone is so dependent on it that they simply cannot get through their day without it and cannot manage to function as a normal member of society without this drug. Like any addiction, it comes down to whether the individual can manage to live their life without the drug ruining it. While some people think marijuana is not dangerous, you can become dependent on it. Number 9. Is it possible to change your eye color? Have you ever wished you could change your eye color? Then, well, you may be in luck. That is, if you have brown eyes and you wish them to be blue. A company called Stroma Medical has developed a procedure to turn brown eyes permanently blue. This may seem like an oddly specific procedure, but there is an explanation for all of it. To begin with, blue eyes are the most sought-after color in the world. Despite only 17% of the world's population having blue eyes, many people consider it to be the most attractive eye color. The procedure only works to turn brown eyes blue because of the strange way it works. Essentially, every brown eye has the potential to be a blue eye. It just comes down to how light enters and reflects off of it. In a brown eye, there is a brown melanin pigment that ensures the eye will be seen as brown. The procedure, designed by Stroma Medical, uses very low-power lasers to disperse the brown pigment, dissolving it so that it will eventually drain out of the eye and leave behind a permanently blue eye. However, clinical trials, they're not yet finished in the United States, so the procedure is not yet available there. Also, some ophthalmologists are concerned that since the pigment particles are only dissolved and not removed, that there could be potential drainage issues that could lead to glaucoma over time. While Stroma Medical insists their procedure is perfectly safe, it will be several years before we know if it will pass regulatory authorities in the US. Number 8. Is it possible to cry blood? We've seen it in horror movies, and it haunts many of our imaginings in the darkest hours of the night. Can people actually be in such bad straits that they cry tears of blood? And, well, the answer is yes. However, it is generally nothing at all to actually be alarmed about, despite the fact that blood is literally pouring out of someone's eyes. The condition is known as hemolacria and has been reported as far back as the 16th century, where doctors first noted the condition in young women who were menstruating. In general, studies have shown that most of the time people who have hemolacria are menstruating women, and it usually goes away after a period of time. It also tends to exhibit itself less in people as they get older and older, and mostly starts affecting people when they are young. However, while doctors believe most cases are caused by hormones due to menstruation, men can also get the condition, and sometimes there is no explanation at all. In several cases in the last few years, there has been no explanation doctors can come up with, and several of these cases occurred in Tennessee. No one has yet figured out why Tennessee has been such a hotspot for unexplained cases of hemolacria. Perhaps it's something in the water. Number 7. Is it possible to drink too much water? While most people dismiss the idea of drinking too much water as nonsense, it is actually quite easy to have too much water and make yourself very sick or possibly even kill yourself. Especially during the summer, or if you perform a lot of strenuous activity the rest of the year, guzzling too much water can put you in danger. The problem is that when you are active and hot, you sweat and lose salt. When you lose too much salt while already drinking water, you lose salt even more rapidly. This loss of electrolytes can lead to seizures and even brain death, so it's best to drink sports drinks and eat lots of foods that keep up your electrolyte balance. Number 6. Is it possible to improve your memory? Some people complain that they do not have very good memories to start with. Perhaps they struggle with names, faces, dates, or any number of other things. Many people have wondered if there is a way to improve your memory over time so you won't have these problems to such a degree anymore. The good news is that there are tricks to improve your memory in almost every way. Memory tricks are known as mnemonics, and there are tricks for any type of learning style. Some memory tricks are better for those who learn visually or by reading, or any other method, really. On top of that, you can not only teach yourself to be better at remembering things, but you can also permanently improve the power and functioning of your brain. Research has shown that due to something called neuroplasticity, our brains actually create new neural pathways and strengthen old ones when we make our brains work, especially when we deliberately put them through mental exercises. If you use mnemonics to help you remember, you are not only improving your short-term memory, you are permanently increasing your brain power. Number 5. Is it possible to overdose on vitamin C? Vitamin C is just one of those things that people think is fantastic for you. This is despite that making no sense and there being literally zero evidence for it. But despite this, whenever someone feels a cold coming on, they insist on guzzling tons of vitamin C containing products. Doctors have told people this doesn't really do anything, but many people still insist in drowning themselves in large amounts of vitamin C if they feel sick. Many people, when confronted with the evidence that this isn't doing much to help, will argue that at least it doesn't cause any harm. It's just vitamins after all, and well, vitamins, they're great for you. However, the truth is that you can have too much of almost anything. If you have too much vitamin C in the short term, it won't kill you, but it can make you feel very sick, giving you symptoms like nausea, diarrhea, bloating, cramps, heartburn, and other digestive issues. However, if you have too much over time, you can put yourself at risk for more serious issues. Indeed, taking too much vitamin C over time has been linked to the formation of kidney stones. Number 4. Is it possible to quit the army? Joining the army is seen as a way out for many people, whether it's a way out of a bad situation or a way to get a good paying job with employment opportunities when you don't feel you have a lot of options. Once you get out of the army in the US, you can use the GI Bill to go back to school, so there are certainly many advantages to joining. However, some recruiters can be shady and tell interested young men and women almost anything to get them to join, so some people are confused about whether you can leave the army or the military in general once you have signed up. And generally, the answer is going to be a solid no. When you sign up for the military, you sign an employment contract for several years at a time. Higher ranks tend to have longer contracts. Once you have signed this contract, you have to see it through until the end. When it comes to civilian employment contracts, if you renege, your employer can take civil action against you and ruin your reputation. If you try to leave the military before the end of your contract, well, you'll be thrown in jail. The only way to get out is if you are discharged for medical reasons of some kind, but that is always decided by your superiors, and it's always for serious reasons. You cannot say you're just sick or mentally unhealthy and then leave. Number 3. Is it possible to swallow your tongue? One of the most recurring myths involving people who have epilepsy is what you need to do when they are having a seizure. Some people, they think they need CPR, obviously not true, and some people think they're at risk of swallowing their own tongue. This has led people to stick objects in the mouth of someone who is suffering from an epileptic attack, which can make things even worse. The truth is that these well-meaning individuals could be putting the person with epilepsy in danger because they are putting objects in the mouth of someone who is thrashing around. They could get cut on the object in their mouth or even choke on it. On the other hand, you cannot swallow your tongue, and doctors say it is not possible for an epileptic to bite off their tongue during a seizure. The best thing you can do if someone is having a seizure is guide them gently to the floor and give them room if possible. If you can, turn them on their side, but don't do so if you're worried that you'll have to manhandle them to do so. Number 2. Is it possible to text 911? This is something you see asked more and more online these days. It is the age of hyperfast communication and basically everyone can text, so people naturally wonder if emergency services have managed to evolve their methods to this new technology. It seems like it would be simple enough. Text your emergency, which can be safer in some situations, and the first responders will be there in no time. However, the problem is that for this to work, you need emergency numbers set up to receive texts, and then people trained and paid to receive and respond to these messages. This is quite expensive, and most departments simply have not had the time to implement it. However, this does not mean that the service does not exist at all. There are some localities within the United States who do have the required infrastructure to take 911 messages through text. This does not mean you should take it for granted though, as far fewer places can take text messages than can't. If you are interested in being able to text 911 in an emergency, you should call up your local police non-emergency hotline and find out first if they have the service. If you are not 100% sure the service is provided in your area, you should always err on the side of caution and just call 911 directly, so long as it is safe to do so. Number 1. Is it possible to catch up on sleep? We've all been there at one point in our life or another, whether it's a student trying to work a full-time job while studying full-time, a single parent who's working multiple jobs, or whatever the reason. Many people find themselves chronically deprived of sleep. To make matters worse, some people get into situations where they feel like they will never have a chance to properly catch up. For this reason, on the weekends, or whenever they find a moment, these people try to binge on sleep and catch up on all the sleep that they have lost. The question becomes, is it even possible to catch up so quickly on lost sleep and get ourselves back into a normal state of equilibrium? Unfortunately, the answer is a little complicated, and like the many things involving your health, if you want to make a difference, you will have to make a change to your long-term habits. Scientists who study sleep have advised that trying to binge on a bunch of sleep at once or on the weekends is not going to properly catch you up. Rather, the best way to catch up on sleep is to add a little more sleep per night, every night, until your body starts to recover and you start to realize that you need sleep less. Eventually, you can repay your sleep debt and go back to sleeping a regular amount of hours every night. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below and don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, do check out my new channel. It's called Biographics. We've got biographies of notable people from the past and present. They run a little bit longer, usually about 20 minutes, so kind of longer form content that we're experimenting with. Please find a link to that channel in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.